you seriously think that he might still be alive?
I would say this, Pac, you never know.
Tupac Shakur didn't actually die in '96 and is still alive.
He's told me, I basically asked, well, was Tupac only pretending to be in order to appeal to gangs and politicize them? And he said yes, was just using that in order to get the and the leaders to call peace truces, first in Los Angeles, then throughout California, and then throughout the country. And that was why he was pretending to be this type.
Because I believe Tupac didn't die.
Really? You think Tupac's still alive?
A Tupac was just spotted after 30 years, and what's coming out now feels darker than anything people were ever told. The truth behind his disappearance is starting to surface, and it's shaking everything believed about that night in 1996. What's unfolding now feels dangerous, like something hidden for decades is finally breaking through.
He put out in his music that he wanted people to believe this, that he was still alive. So I don't know if let him rest is the right term. I think Tupac's liking this from wherever he's at, yeah.
Something about the death of Tupac Shakur never sat right, and the deeper this story goes, the harder it becomes to ignore that feeling. Officially, he was pronounced dead on September 13th, 1996 at exactly 4:03 p.m. That timestamp became history, repeated in headlines, documentaries, and police records. But behind that clean, final moment, the timeline starts to feel unstable. He was shot on September 7th, which means there were 6 full days in the hospital where everything should have been carefully documented. Instead, those days are filled with contradictions. End it later.
This newly released evidence showing never-before-seen details in a case that's cracked wide open some 27 years later.
He was just an intellectual prodigy.
Some witnesses claimed his condition was improving. Others said he was barely holding on from the moment he arrived. That kind of difference is not small. It suggests confusion or something being controlled. Then comes the cremation. Reports say his body was cremated within 24 hours of his death. For an artist of his level, with global attention and millions grieving, that speed feels unnatural. There was no extended public viewing, no prolonged confirmation process, nothing that allowed people to fully process what had happened. It was fast, quiet, and final.
Well, a shocking surprise for one Henderson resident when he found out a house near his home was being searched Monday night in the nearly 30-year-old murder case of rapper Tupac Shakur.
And then there are the missing hospital records. Between September 8th and September 10th, documentation becomes unclear. Gaps appear where there should have been detailed updates. No solid explanation has ever been given for that missing information. It creates a hole in the story that cannot be easily filled. For years, this was dismissed as chaos or poor record keeping, but when you combine it with everything else, it starts to feel like something was removed on purpose. Not corrected, not clarified, just gone.
My closest friends, my homies, I done took care of everything for them, looked out for them, put them in the game, everything turned on me. Fear is stronger than love. Remember that.
Now go back to the night of September 7th, 1996. Las Vegas. The version told to the public was simple. A drive-by shooting, sudden and violent, but when you slow it down, it doesn't feel random. Tupac was in a black BMW with Suge Knight leaving a Mike Tyson fight. The route they took was predictable. The timing was known. Anyone watching closely would have known exactly where to find them. And then, at a red light, the attack happened. 13 shots were fired. 4 bullets hit Tupac. The shooting was fast, controlled, and precise.
Shakur was gunned down here in Las Vegas back in 1996. No one was ever charged, but now a televised confession.
This was not messy. It was not careless. It looked planned. And despite the scale of the crime, no one was ever truly held accountable in a way that closed the case. No clear resolution, no final answer. For something this big, that silence is loud. It suggests that what happened that night may have been more than a random act of violence. It begins to feel like a setup, something calculated from the start.
You are going to be placed under arrest.
Me?
Mm-hmm. You're Allie, right?
Yeah.
Now jump forward nearly 30 years. March 8th, 2026. A security camera in Rosarito, Mexico captures footage at exactly 2:17 a.m. A man steps out of a private compound. At first glance, it seems ordinary, but then people start paying attention. The way he moves, the posture, the subtle details that trigger recognition. Something about him feels familiar in a way that is difficult to ignore.
I'm on the Pingree Park Road, and I have a dead body.
They did find a body. What?
It was one clean cut very deeply into his neck, from left to right.
The footage is analyzed using facial recognition software. The result comes back with a 92.7% match to Tupac. That number changes everything. Within 72 hours, the video reached over 52 million views. It spreads across the world, pulling attention from everywhere. People are not just curious, they are shaken. Because this is not a random street video. The location matters. This was a secure compound, private and guarded. The kind of place associated with protection, not chance encounters.
Keep walking back, take a step to your left, step to your left.
She went to his home today to find out more about his neighborhood and what it feels like to be so close to the home that may be connected to Sharku's death.
Then, just days later, the situation becomes even more intense. On March 11th, a 17-page document leaked online. It is not presented as a theory or speculation. It reads like an operational file. The document describes a covert extraction dated September 14th, 1996. That is one day after Tupac was officially declared dead. According to the file, a Category Red individual was moved under emergency protocol at exactly 3:40 a.m.
If you knew who killed Tupac, would you tell the police?
Absolutely not. I don't get paid to solve homicides.
The name attached to that operation is what truly shocks people. Machiavelli 7. That was not just a nickname. It was an identity Tupac embraced shortly before his death. Seeing it in a document like this does not feel accidental. It feels deliberate.
This newly released evidence showing never-before-seen details in a case that's cracked wide open some 27 years later.
The file includes details that make the situation even harder to dismiss. It mentions unmarked vehicles, a medical transport unit that never appeared in any official record, and movements that were not logged anywhere publicly. It is as if an entire operation existed outside the system, hidden, controlled, and carefully executed. Even more disturbing are the coordinates embedded in the file data, pointing toward a restricted airstrip in Nevada.
Nearly 13 hours of body-worn camera video obtained first.
That suggests planning at a level far beyond a spontaneous reaction. This was not about saving someone in the moment. It looks like a structured extraction, something prepared in advance, clean, fast, and invisible.
I didn't really look up to Tupac. I wasn't his fan, right? I wasn't his friend. He was just an ordinary person to me.
At this point, the entire narrative begins to shift. The question is no longer just about who was responsible for the shooting. It becomes something much deeper. What if Tupac did not die that night at all? What if he survived and was removed before the public even understood what had happened?
The man charged in Tupac Shakur's murder is speaking out from behind bars for the first time. Dwayne Keefe D. Davis insists he was 300 miles away when the rapper was shot. Now he's pointing the finger at someone else.
Because when you put all of this together, the rushed cremation, the missing records, the controlled timeline, the recent footage, and the Machiavelli 7 document, it stops feeling like a coincidence. It starts to feel like a pattern. And patterns like this do not form by accident.
I'm innocent. I ain't killed nobody, never did ever kill nobody. They don't have no evidence against me. Came and put me in Las Vegas.
If he was taken and hidden, then someone made that decision. Someone kept it secret for 30 years. That level of silence requires control, power, and a reason strong enough to justify it. And now, with pieces of that story starting to surface again, it feels like something that was buried for decades is beginning to break through. And once something like that starts coming out, it does not go back quietly.
The way that a camera was placed into the facility was by a correctional officer bringing it in, which was very, very not a part of their job description.
Just when it feels like this story cannot get any darker, something else drops. And this one is different. This one has a voice. On March 14th, 2026, a recording appears online. No warning, no buildup, just a file spreading across platforms like wildfire. The length is specific, 3 minutes and 21 seconds. Not long enough to explain everything, but long enough to shake people completely.
It kind of protects the high classification person that's placed in this unit, and it protects the person from having any interaction with any other inmate.
At first, people assume it is fake. Another edit, another attempt to ride the wave. That happens all the time. But then you actually listen to it and the tone hits differently. It is calm, controlled, almost too controlled. Not emotional in the way you expect, but heavy. Every word is being chosen carefully. And then the line comes out that makes everything stop. They knew where I'd be. That wasn't random.
Keith D. Davis was arrested early this morning, though the exact charge or charges he faces isn't known right now. His arrest happening just 2 months after Las Vegas police raided Davis's wife's home in Henderson, Nevada.
That one sentence does damage because it cuts straight through the official story. For years, people were told it was chaos, bad luck, or a violent moment that spiraled out of control. But this voice is saying the opposite. It is saying it was planned, watched, set up in advance.
You can hear the officers calling out the man living inside Dwayne Keith Davis, known as Keefy D, who has claimed he is one of only 2 surviving eyewitnesses to the murder of Tupac Shakur.
And here is where things get uncomfortable. Audio experts start analyzing the recording. Not random YouTubers, not guesswork, actual professionals. They break down tone, cadence, and vocal patterns. The result comes back at an 89% match to Tupac Shakur. That is not perfect, but it is way too high to ignore. Close enough to make people pause, close enough to make people uneasy.
This is the biggest development in the Tupac murder case since this all happened, since the murder happened. They never served a search warrant and, showed up at someone's house with the SWAT team back in 1996. So this is definitely, it can't be overstated.
Now here is where it gets almost strange in a different way. The voice does not sound scared. That is the part that throws people off. If this is someone who survived an assassination attempt and disappeared for decades, you expect fear, you expect panic. But this voice sounds steady, like someone who has already accepted what happened a long time ago, like someone who has been sitting on this truth, waiting. And the recording hints at something even bigger. It suggests survival was not luck. It was immediate action, fast movement, almost like a plan was already in place the moment things went wrong. That shifts the entire narrative again, because now it is not just about escaping danger. It feels like someone was ready for that moment before it even happened.
We should stop all this bullshit with each other, black on black crimes. It's bullshit. We need to wake up our whole community.
Right when people are still trying to process that audio, another layer drops, and this one hits in a completely different way. Money, cold, traceable, undeniable numbers. Between 1997 and 2003, a total of $14.3 million moved through offshore accounts. Not small transfers, not random activity. Consistent structured movement, the kind that does not happen by accident. Investigators trace these funds through shell companies in Panama, Belize, and the Cayman Islands. These are not random locations. These are places people use when they want things hidden properly.
Me having contact with him, illegal. I was never supposed to have any contact with Tupac. Remember, the judge had actually says, no one can have interaction with this celebrity because he's mandated to be highly classified.
In a search warrant also obtained by ABC News, police reported they seized magazine articles, computers, hard drives, and photos from the 1990s that apparently show individuals who could have been connected to Shakur's death.
And then comes the detail that makes people sit up straight. One of these companies lists a silent partner. No full name, no identity, just initials, MK.
In the killing, that had been reported in the Los Angeles Times. It's interesting that now the spotlight turns toward this new suspect, Keefy D.
Now that could mean anything. It could be a coincidence. It could be nothing. But in a story where Machiavelli was one of the most powerful identities connected to Tupac, those 2 letters do not feel random. they feel intentional.
Breaking news, an arrest has been made in connection with the Tupac Shakur murder. Las Vegas police have arrested a man on suspicion of murder in that 1996 drive-by shooting of the famous rapper. For more, let's...
The company has operated quietly for years, moving money, maintaining structure, and staying under the radar. And then suddenly, in April 2004, it disappears. Shut down. Gone. No explanation. No transition. Just finished. And that timing lines up almost perfectly with old rumors that started surfacing around that same year about sightings in Cuba.
Police order him out of the home and then move in to begin searching for a list of items that could tie him to the murder. The faces of officers blurred by Las Vegas police and portions of the video redacted.
Now think about that for a second. This is not the pattern of someone running for a few weeks or months. This looks like long-term support. A system designed to keep someone hidden, funded, and protected for years. That is not survival on the run. That is a controlled life in the shadows.
Keefe D confessed that his nephew, Orlando Anderson, fired those fatal shots. Police say Anderson was the main suspect in the murder, but never faced charges. Anderson since died.
And just when it feels like the story cannot connect any deeper, something else surfaces from a completely different direction. A federal case. Quietly reopened in late 2025. No big announcement, no headlines, just movement behind the scenes.
You can hear the officers calling out the man living inside, Dwayne Keith Davis, known as Keefe D, who has claimed he is one of only 2 surviving eyewitnesses to the murder of Tupac Shakur.
This case is tied to the music industry in the 1990s. Not just artists, but money, influence, and connections that ran deeper than people realized at the time. For years, it stayed sealed, untouched. And then suddenly, after decades, it starts moving again. Witnesses begin cooperating. People who stayed silent for years start talking. That alone is enough to raise questions, because silence like that usually has a reason. And when it breaks, it is rarely random.
So that's what I tell the story of how Tupac and I really got these pictures and photos put into this facility.
Some of these claims are heavy. They suggest Tupac was not just caught in violence, they suggest he knew things. Information that made him dangerous. Not dangerous in a physical way, but dangerous in what he could expose. And if that is true, then the shooting was not just about removing a person. It was about silencing what he knew. Now everything starts connecting in a way that feels uncomfortable. The planned attack, the immediate disappearance, the hidden money, the coded identity, the sudden reopening of a federal case. It starts to look less like separate events and more like pieces of the same system.
I heard like a female voice. I thought I heard something behind me, yeah. Dude, that was a voice, clear as day. That was a male voice.
It just feels like something is on the stairs watching me.
And here is the part that really sticks. If he is alive, and if all of this is connected, then his timing matters. Coming back now after 30 years would not be random. It would mean something is changing, something that was hidden is getting closer to the surface, because people do not stay silent for 3 decades without a reason. And they definitely do not come back without one.
Henderson, that's about 15 miles southeast of the Vegas Strip. Shakur was at a red light just a block from the Strip when he was shot multiple times.
He was in the Cadillac, the white vehicle that pulled up beside Suge Knight and Tupac on that Las Vegas Strip, but it's not clear yet who is the actual shooter.
Just when people are still trying to recover from the Mexico footage and that chilling audio, another sighting hits. And this one feels even more real. March 20th, 26, San Diego Marina. Time is exact, 11:06 p.m. Not daytime, not crowded, not random. Late night, controlled environment, the kind of place where movements are quiet and deliberate.
Yeah, and according to AP's reporting, this is a person who was somehow involved, and according to his memoir, he was there at the time of the shooting. And
a black SUV pulls up. Nothing unusual at first. Cars come and go all the time. But then the door opens and a man steps out. Witnesses say everything about him felt familiar in a way that made their stomach drop. Older, yes. Heavier, yes. A gray beard now. Time clearly passed over him. But the structure of the face, the presence, The way he carried himself, it triggered something immediate.
And a retired LAPD detective says that Diddy is the one who ordered the hit on Tupac in Vegas. In 2006, the investigation into Biggie's death was reopened because the city wanted more evidence to defend themselves against a lawsuit.
And here is where it gets strange. He was not alone. Two men stepped out with him, moving like trained security, focused and scanning everything. Not casual, not relaxed. The kind of presence that signals protection, not hiding. What stands out even more is his behavior. He did not look like someone on the run. No panic, no hesitation. He looked calm, aware, almost prepared. Like he knew exactly where he was and why he was there. One witness said something chilling. He did not look like he was hiding. He looked like he was waiting. That changes everything. Waiting for what? And after 30 years of silence, why now? That kind of disappearance is not running. It is a complete reset. If the 1996 shooting was planned, then vanishing was not a choice. It was survival. And when you connect it to the offshore money and structured support, it starts to feel organized. But silence does not last forever. If old cases are reopening and people are talking again, staying hidden may not be protection anymore. It may be the reason to come back,